Welcome, NBT family, to the Download Episode 1. This is a series where the NBT artistic team comes together to download, to process, to align, to understand the world happening around us, and to just talk about it. We're going to start with some introductions of our team today. I'll start. I am Nia Farrell. I am the interactive social media manager of National Black Theater. And I am so excited to be here. We wanted to talk about what we're doing to get our vibe right today. And I would say this is it. It's been a kind of chaotic day, and y'all are setting my vibe, setting my intention. Jonathan, would you like to go next? I'll popcorn it to you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just super excited to get back into the driver's seat of making these conversations happen. We did the download, the first one for Founders Month. Actually, the first one was during Communal Resilience, where we launched our MBT at Home series, and the opportunity to really be in community with you dynamic 3 individuals and to have the kind of conversations that we're going to have. I'm just really looking forward to. So what am I doing to set my vibe? Is that one of the questions? So set my vibe. I have a crystal next to the computer to make sure the energy that I exude out is amplified and that I don't get sucked in by the energy of the actual computer. And I'm gonna pass it to Chelsea.
Hello. I'm Chelsea B. I'm co-curator and moderator of the MBT at Home series. I was going to do a description of, I have on pink earrings and longish brown hair that's braided. I took a lot of time to do these individuals. I have on a t-shirt that was designed by Jamie Todd. And that's what I look like right now. To get my vibe right, I'm doing a cup of tea. And also a candle in the theme of balance. Wait, I gotta get my angles right. Balance. So that's where I am in getting my vibe right.
Oh, who do you pass it to?
Oh, I pass it to Sade Lithcott.
Yeah. Good evening, y'all, my family, my folks. I'm Sade Lithcott. I'm the CEO of the National Black Theater. How am I getting my vibe right? I'm breathing. I'm breathing. I'm intentionally breathing deep. I'm intentionally choosing to be present. And I'm intentionally enjoying a little libation.
Intense.
Both in honor of the conversation we're about to have, pouring some out. And also, it's just been a week. It's been a season. It's been some time. So I am unwinding. I'm becoming more present through the libation. Here. And then my accessibility check-in is I am a fair-skinned African-American woman, long braids that are cornrowed. I'm wearing a kind of popped collar suit up against a Yoruba beaded brown and kind of autumn colored painting. Privileged to be here today.
Jonathan, should we do an accessibility check-in as the twinsies?
I think we should. You want to go first?
Yeah. So I am also a fair-skinned African-American woman. My hair is in a poof, a bun, whatever form it manifested today, up against a white wall, wearing a black shirt that says "Powered by my ancestors."
And I, Jonathan McCory, Artistic Director of MBT, I am wearing the similar shirt, same as Nia. We did not plan this, but this is that twindom energy. I am actually sitting cross-legged on a sofa. I'm a caramel-skinned human with 2 necklaces on, one with a charm of a turtle, old harmonica, and a locket. I have an earring on my right ear, and I have a mustache with a very low-cut hair. And I'm on my backdrop is actually a brick wall, red brick wall.
Beautiful. Well, like we said, welcome to NBT's The Download, episode 1. Today, our core question, is Black death becoming more valuable than Black life? This is a yes or no, and I kind of just want to make the bold statement and say yes and get into how. How exactly is Black death becoming more valuable than Black life in this moment, especially in a digital sphere where everything's online and we're receiving information a lot more quickly? The first question that I have for you all is, what is performative activism? Where do we see it, and why is it harmful to the progress of this movement? Yeah, we're jumping right in tonight.
Yeah,
there's no buffer.
Getting into the deep end.
By the way, we didn't know these questions either, so we're hearing them with
Didn't know the questions. I sent those in a nicely structured email. Don't worry.
I didn't read the questions.
Performative activism, Jonathan. I feel like.
I mean, I'm always trying to create. I always want to create space for others, and hopefully that I try. So I mean, so when I hear the question, my first thing is that when you say yes, I have to breathe, right? Because that breath of the yes is an affirmation that it is true. I think even if you pop the question up just again, the main question for what this conversation is about, because the value of our lives, the value of being Black on this country has always been connected to a commodification of how can I gain something from your skin, from your work labor, from your life labor, and also from your death labor, right? And however this system called capitalism, called America, the American experiment it has from slavery all the way until the policing of Black and brown bodies. And so when I think about activism, and I think about the space of activism, I really do wonder and question sometimes, not everyone who does activism, but I do wonder and question sometimes, to what degree do you commodify off of the heart-wrenching and real lives that have been snatched away at a snapshot, and then therefore you create programs, marches, X, Y, and Z around that snapshot, and you turn someone who wasn't initially or didn't ever aspire to be a martyr to be turned into a martyr and an icon. And how does that family, I think Sade and I talk about this all the time, when does that family get to have their son, their brother, their grieve about the father, their daughter? When do they get to have that person back? Their wife, when do they get to have that person back? Does that ever get to happen? So those are just some questions that ring in my head, knowing that there is a system that puts that life and the way that life is murdered through a kind of a commodification. Yeah.
The clearest example I've seen of that is the recent rise of infographics on Instagram, where it feels like a Black person died today and all I got was a pastel colored square to honor their life. We've seen how names are becoming slogans and mottos, and you're losing the meaning of that person's life and all that they held, and we're only seeing that moment when that life was taken away.
And that also, if we can recognize the history of dehumanizing Black folks, foundation of this country, we have to be able to recognize in these moments of Black Lives Matter, but they only matter when white people say they matter and when they're dead, that it further dehumanizes us. It creates a narrative that actually isn't much different than the original narrative that made us 3/5 of a man, right? That our humanity is in question and is only valuable when it can be profited off of, right? Which is the structure of human slavery, which is also the structure of this weird, traumatic, post-traumatic, complex traumatic syndrome that we're going through. And when you say, when you ask about performative activism, it's almost like it's cover. It's cover to not actually do the deep dive work. And the truth of the matter is, when all of the noise, because there's a lot of noise that's happening in the midst of this reckoning, when all of the noise quiets down, we still have to go back and love on our children and raise our kids and try to instill in them that their life force matters. And you can't do that if you're constantly replaying and emphasizing the importance of that one death, right? Also, because we know how vibration works and we know how science works and we know that words matter, affirmations matter. When you affirm that you can't breathe, how are you ever supposed to get to a space where you can breathe? So it's this, MBT starts every morning, thank you, Nia, with a daily affirmation. What are we breathing life into? In this moment of performative activism where everyone's trying to cancel shit and dismantle shit, there is a place for that, but we want to ask the question for our community's life force, what are we building, right? And what, instead of canceling, and saying and calling folks out, Jonathan and I, all of us always talk about that. What are we inviting people into? Because at the end of the day, once we burn it all down, the seeds that grow are what is being watered. And if we're not watering Black life, how can it exist? And the last thing I will just say is we have to be, this is why I love Chelsea D so much. Chelsea, are you outside of this? She is like, one of her deepest turn-ons, and she is a very turned-on woman, is history, right? And if you know the beginning well, the end will not trouble you. The reason why we have decentralized movements and that it seems like Black communities don't have any leadership is because we were systemically killed. All of our leaders. When you think about Dr. King, he didn't make it to 40. When you think about Malcolm, he didn't make it to 40. When you think about Fred Hampton, he didn't make it to 30. These are people in their 20s and 30s, ripped down in the prime of their contribution to our communities. And that's not just for the movement. That is for the generation that is yet to be born to see someone survive the terror of this country, right? We're not talking about, so they're important because they die, right? But can we even imagine a future now as if they had lived? What situation would we be sitting in? So anyway, that's a bit of a soapbox, but I would just say our language is important, not just the imagery, right? So to your these squares of say her name and the hashtag, like, I can breathe, like I commit to support you to breathe, Black Lives Matter. Matter is literally the lowest vibration. So how about, can we push that a little farther? Black communities matter, Black liberation matters, Black life matters. And so these are the things that I think as we look at how our movement has become marketing slogans, and we feel very passionate about dismantling institutional and systemic racism. If you ain't building anything, you leave a wide open gap for others to fill in the narrative. And so we have to start doing that simultaneously, with reverent focus and with radical love, because we are all we got.
Yeah. Speaking of futures, makes me think of something Octavia Butler writes. One of the phrases from Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents is from Earthseed. And she writes, all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. And so the question is, like, are we really being changed? And I think the basis of change is internal. So like the performative activism aspect of it, to me, it speaks to like, I'm making an outward show of something that I'm not doing internally. Like because when we talk about uprooting, white supremacy and bringing it down, deconstructing, the question is, well, where do these things live within me? Where do I uphold white supremacist ideas? Where do I value Black death over Black life? Can I really call it out in other people if I haven't really rooted it out of myself? So that's what I think of with performative activism, and like co-opting, things being co-opted. America is good for co-opting, it's like, oh, what's that? I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna make some money off that. You know what I mean? What's that? Your face? I'm gonna take the name of your tribe and make some money off that and name my football team. You know what I mean? It's like such a machine to take a people and turn it into a product,
And the thing, go ahead, Sade.
Ooh, crosstalk.
The machine, that part is really like, if we can come back to at some point, the machine of it all, because I wonder when our lives matter, when our death is on repeat. Does my life matter when you have the death of, and then the long list of folks, when I have to watch on repeat a knee on a neck, an illegal headlock, like after a Tide commercial? Like, at what point, as you're programming your feed, which you're getting likes off of and clickbait off of, like, did you think about my life and what post-traumatic slave syndrome, what trauma runs in my DNA that those images trigger? Did you think about my life when you commodify or when you sensationalize death and murder on repeat?
Well, and I think the thing that comes up for me is that, like, we are our life and connectivity right now, our community has actually been boxed in. Literally, our ability to communicate and what happens outside this box. What life lives outside of the post, what life lives outside of the video, what life lives outside of the narrative that we construct. And for me, that's when the mattering, or that's when the life of who someone is, the value of who they are, is lost. Because we are not actually taking in a holistic view of somebody. We're taking a view that actually benefits for our own singular good. So there is this kind of grief that is brought into play when we talk about this commodification that you're bringing up, Nia. So and asking us to reckon with, or reconcile, or try to figure out what to do with, because we are living a life that is asking us to be vulnerable, as far as, like, actually we're filming inside of our homes, right? But also limiting, because you're only seeing a section of what our homes look like. You're only seeing a section of who we are, a fraction of our persona, a fraction of how we show up on this planet. And yet, and the same tip, from this fraction, you will make everyone will, it's natural, it's human, will make judgments or make assumptions based off that. And how do we do that also to the Black lives that are murdered? And how do we do that also to the Black lives that we uplift, and the ones that we don't talk about, the ones that we sweep under the rug, the ones that we don't name, the ones that we don't give space to? How are we demonizing and also saying that this, to Sade's point, this life does not matter, to the point where it does not get a newsreel, but this life does, and it's going to get so much newsreel, and it's going to get protest upon protest, but these other lives will not. It's actually like really mind-boggling to me, but also makes total sense when the term "all Black lives matter" had to be brought into the ethers versus just saying Black lives matter, because there was a group of people who were being excluded from just the term Black lives matter. We were not holding the complexity of it because we wanted to simplify it, and the term "all" awakened a sensibility of us being able to understand who are we not seeing. And I think that's my question when we talk about the commodification and the kind of capitalistic activism that's happening. What is not being seen for the dollar to make sure that an engine is able to keep on moving?
The social media industrial complex is just really tripping with me right now.
Terrifying.
It's absolutely terrifying because we are all participants in it, because there's the person who posts it that either gets either a monetary profit from being able to share this information, or like the social profit of being like, I am able to say that I have this information, I get more woke points than someone else. There's the platforms that now have all these people rushing to these platforms to share this information. We as the consumer sharing it, it just adds to it all. And it's like, we have to remember, like, what are we profiting off of? And it's Black death. At the root of it, we're profiting off of Black death. And is there a way in which knowledge and like wanting to stay informed and wanting to know and wanting to help and support, like, can that not be commodified? Can it not rely? Can we like still be informed without having someone needing to die? Like, can I know that Black Lives Matter without a Black person dying?
That's a really good question. And I would pose that to this group, right? Like, what is the line between awareness, to your point, sharing important information so that we don't turn a blind eye to the journey of some of our people, and the commodification or the performative aspect of it? What is the line? Especially using social media as a platform to get the word out.
It's like, it's such a big, it's like, what's the difference between being informed and upholding white supremacy? Which is like, oh, how do I learn about, because I just feel like the news is curated through the lens of what's going to sell, you know, and the sensationalism of someone dying, you know, is going to sell. It's going to get those clickbaits. So, you know, a part of me is like, inform me about the structural things I can do within my community to dismantle this. You know, tell me about, you know, I'm only just learning about these county judges or these, you know, kind of within the bureaucracy of our government, who's been making decisions and doing just heinous things and having heinous beliefs, you know. So I would want to be informed about, you know, how to get those people out, how to deal with those people. That's what I want to know. Structural things.
When I think about the line, that you're referring to, Sade, and the line that you're also uplifting, Nia, I wonder, because I even think about the people that I follow and the people I follow on Instagram, how I contribute but don't contribute to Instagram, how I utilize Facebook, how I utilize and don't utilize Facebook, how Twitter works inside of my psyche, and also how it is to watch the news, like how all those things work as concentric circles. And I wonder, and I ask myself, like when George Floyd, when the Breonna Taylor, when all those moments were happening, I was watching the news all the time. Now I don't watch it anymore because I don't want to know. Like, I don't, like, there's an element of me that just rather stay in a space of, I'll get it when I need to get it. I want to go back. Part of me wants to revolt against this notion of knowing right then and there, and get back to the place of where I learn in an organic speed of my spiritual capacity. So instead of me learning everything at once, I remember someone telling me that when they found out Emmett Till had been murdered, like months after the actual murder. Like, it wasn't something that they learned right then and there because news didn't travel that fast, right? And that kind of sensibility of being able to, I don't know, there's a little bit of health in thinking about like you didn't learn right then and there that death had happened, that murder, that atrocity had happened, gave you time and space to live a different kind of life, and then learn when you needed to learn. And then there's also this thing of like, if I don't learn what's happening in my own neighborhood right then and there, in my own block right then and there, I could be also a victim and put in danger. So there's this double-edged sword that's at play that really challenges how do I get informed? When do I get informed? And then also, what is my responsibility in sharing the information that I have? And how do I share that information? I mean, it sets me in a moral conundrum, actually, Nia and Sade, that I'm wrestling with and trying to figure out how to understand.
I think that activism can't be in vogue. That's a problem. If it's in vogue, it's already gauche. That's part of the problem. Not everybody was born to be a fucking activist. And there's a pressure to be an activist or get canceled. And because there are no classes or we're not learning around what real allyship is, people are more afraid of getting themselves canceled by not making statements than doing the work to shift and change the life of Black folks, Black and brown folks in this country. And I promise you, everyone thinks that this is a moment of reckoning where activism is on everyone's tongue. That scares me more than anything, because the revolution will not be televised. And it is, if it's in vogue, it is gauche. It really just is. And I think about it from a really intimate space, right? I think about it from the space of Harlem. I think about it, I was born and raised in this village that is Harlem. The beat and the rhythm that has fed me for, since I was born in this community has never been a space that was frightening. It only has fed me. It reminds me of the Nikki Giovanni poem, Nikki Rosa, describing, the summers in the street with the fire hydrant, and the hood niggas on the block on the corner, but you knew them all and they made sure you got home safe. Like, that was my existence of Harlem. It was music, it was the jazz player, it was the sound of the nod out when the heroin addict passed out. It was all of it, and it was all beautiful, and it all is in me, until this moment of Harlem moving in the direction of becoming a space that is vogue. Gucci's up here, the reemergence of Dapper Dan, who, if you know him as a man, he's an icon because he's an abolitionist. But as a brand, it is another symbol. And so I'm watching the brand that is Harlem circumvent the village that is Harlem, that is culture with a big C as opposed to brand with a big B. And I always want to push Black folks to the edge of their comfort around the term brand and branding, because brands have never been in service of our lives, right? The first brand we came into relationship in this country was a brand on our skin. Why are we marching to that beat in that direction? And so for me, a lot of this has to do with that, right? That we have to, so I'll leave that piece there. The other piece that I'm thinking about as we're talking about this is something that you showed us about how you were getting your vibe right, Chelsea. You held up a candle that said balance. And I've been thinking about it since you were showing, everyone showing their vibe. Balance, right? This idea that when we think about Black death being more valuable than Black life, we start to think, where am I affirming life in my own, right? Like in my own space. And that perhaps the line that is drawn around informing is, what is that balance up against? So if I am affirming Black death by informing people of these atrocities, am I affirming my own life? Am I affirming my own community and the people in my life that are alive, right? Because I think that the part of the problem and the challenge that we're facing is that there is no balance, that you don't see Black life unless you see Black death. You're not affirming, what's happening in our communities that make us feel like we're home. We're not affirming the boots on the ground folks that have been doing this work way before the camera got there and will be doing it after the camera leaves. And so anyway, I would just say, I'm in a space right now where balance is how I reconcile the line. That it's important to inform, it is important to raise awareness, but where are we balancing that out in our own lives and in our own feeds?
I uplift balance. I also feel like my impulse is to just like question everything constantly. My friend and I were talking about like this idea of the line is really a moment in time where it's like we were all sharing these Google Docs on like resources to look at, and then no one actually read the books. And so like we've crossed the line, and now I'm going to be asking people for 5-page papers on the last anti-racism book that they read. Like that's how I'm going to start like ethically engaging in social media. It's just going to be 5-page papers.
But I also just want to uplift, because when I sit with the idea of Black death, and I just think that death can come. Yes, the physical death we've talked about, and I think the physical death is very much something that is real. But there's also the emotional death. There's also the psychological death. There's multiple deaths that are happening and occurring in our society, which is making us numb, right? Making us not be able to fully breathe and kind of exhale, really let our exhale come out in a public way, in a way in which that allows for us to have some of the liberties that we're quote unquote said we're supposed to be able to have. So I'm really trying to understand. I just want everyone to know this is our first time using StreamYard. So
StreamYard.
I'm like, yo, I'm really trying to understand the pressure points of that space of death, and the nuanced spaces of how death shows up inside of the Black community and Black body, the Black individual. We don't have to put it on everyone, but the Black individual, which is a personal thing. As we consume these images, as we are consuming and also living with the notion of COVID-19 and how it's ravaged our community, as we sit with the numbing that happens with the kind of isolation that COVID-19 has caused. And I just wonder, I wonder how death is extrapolated, because that is also a value. To numb us is a value. Mm-hmm. To turn us into zombies is a value. There's a value to that you can control. To have that feed be next to Tide commercial, Sade, as you said, is a value somewhat. Because if you see me in sorrow and then you see comfort next, you want comfort, you might buy Tide, right? There's a psychological game that is at play for the ones that are living, that are dying psychologically, emotionally, and even physically. The atrophy of what COVID-19 has also done, right? The death. I mean, James Baldwin said it, the death of the heart, but he was talking about white folks and white America, but the death of the heart of Black folks. I wonder, and I asked that question, what is powering those spaces to bring them back to life? What's powering those spaces to not allow for that consumption to take over to a place where someone can teach you how to name value on you, and that value being exerted through you buying into the commerciality of capitalism?
You know, that's where I think about pleasure activism and the uses of the erotic, and Audre Lorde and Adrienne Maree Brown, thanks. Because, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
My headphones did the weird thing. But I just think about so if Black death is a tool of white supremacy to cancel our imagination of the future, or to take away our ability to conceive of a future for ourselves, then us plugging into what brings us pleasure and what fulfills our desires as a new source of energy, you know what I mean? As a new seat of power. Just I think in my own process to understand pleasure in myself, it's it's probably one of the most difficult personal journeys to figure out my blockages to pleasure, what stops me from enjoying things. And it's so deeply rooted and I think deeply connected to a trauma, a matrilineal, patrilineal, these things that are passed down, DNA being altered and recoded. I mean, I think it's all in there. And yet finding what brings me pleasure, I can't go back. You know what I mean? I can't go to a place of death and ending. I can't even conceive of death as an ending. You know what I mean? Because it's like nature gives the example of regeneration. My partner and I have built a farm. And so something that I have been really learning is like, things don't die. You know what I mean? They get recycled. You have your compost. There's plants that I've
We have a
taken.
whole conversation about you being a farmer.
Yeah, like, can we bring back the Black Farmer bit?
I didn't know you started a farm, Chelsea. Like, come on, keep on going.
It's really been a very, very like personal, again, trying not to allow for this very private, spiritual, physical practice to become commodified, to become co-opted into some performative thing, you know. I share it with y'all though, because I think y'all can make the connection between why this is so just so deeply, you know, personal and just personally radical. You know what I mean? Like, finding my pleasure, getting in touch with my pleasure has been probably one of the most radical dismantling of white supremacy within myself I think I've ever done, even with all the reading and everything, you know? So I think it's there. I think there's something in finding what feels good and that being the source of fuel.
And challenging what feels good, right?
Mm.
Because so much of what we think feels good is actually poison, and of what actually sets your soul on fire, right?
Wow.
And it just to pick up on something that Jonathan was saying, I wonder, and this is a question to the group, you know, is death ever in service to Black liberation? Okay? Because that's also that balance, right? Is there, and we can look at death from a multiple perspectives and lenses, right? Like the phoenix from the ashes, that's a form of a death, right? COVID is a traumatic experience, especially for our communities. We're losing our grandparents, our parents, our friends, you know, and we're also more innovative and having these conversations and connecting the globe with digital conversations, where if we were doing this at NBT, it would be in a 99-seat black box theater. Now, like our last download was like 2,000, 3,000 people. So I wonder, is there an apparatus? Is there a moment? Is there a mechanism or a lever by which death, in all of the different forms, can actually be in service to our liberation? And maybe it is the death that sparks you going on a pleasure journey around that. Like, because we know what the phoenix does. It rises from the ashes. We know you have to plow the land to sow the seed for it to grow. We understand that the shit of it all is fertilizer to make something grow, right? If we look at nature as a metaphor, like literally the shit. So how much of this test is our testimony, and how important is that balance?
I love this imagery of the garden and the Black Farmer. I would also like to take a temperature check in this moment, because I know, like, in my heart, I'm sinking a little bit just talking about death for 40 minutes, where it's like, oh, this is like, I don't know, I thought I could make it longer, but my tolerance is not as strong as I thought it would be. And so I'm wondering if you all would be interested in this like gardening farmer conversation of like, what are you planting? What surprised you that grew out of nowhere? And like, just any metaphor related to farming.
I want to pick up just to Sade, and I'm going to go to the farmer, right? I think that what I love about what you're asking, Sade, is you're actually, for me, you're asking for me not to have a conversation around death, but a conversation around transformation, and a conversation actually around the idea of passing, shedding, and letting, like a conversation actually around the process of grieving, like a conversation around rejuvenation, a conversation not. Because when I actually think of what you're asking for me to reckon with in that moment, in your question, which I appreciate, is that you're actually bringing an indigenous understanding of what this kind of modality can be that actually provides breath and levity and life. While I think when we talk about it from the vantage point in which we were engaging this as Black Death, is a finite delineating point that says at this juncture I get to say who you are. At this juncture I get to commodify on who you are, and at this juncture I put you in a box. While what I feel like you asked me to have a conversation with was how does this moment transform my relationship with the other thing, with myself, fall as being a beautiful, actually this is a beautiful time to have this conversation because things are shedding. Things are actually transforming. There's so much transformation happening around us that it is a moment for us to actually take stock of. And COVID has been doing it to us in a very real way. But it's a moment for us to take stock of what do I want to be transformed by? How do I want to transform the rest of this year? What do I want to shed to prepare myself for what's to come? And that's what, to a lot of levels, also what a garden teaches you. Mm-hmm. A garden tells you, like I have these plants that I bought. They're like my best friend. They're like my new friends. Like during COVID, like we have conversations in the morning. I bought stuff for them. Like it's like I treat them like my kids. It's like a whole thing. I know there are other people out there who have bought plants, and it's a whole situation, right? One of them wants to be stubborn, right? And I try to talk to, her name is Karen. It was after my mom. My mom is Karen McCory, but she doesn't want to grow. Her leaves don't want to be green anymore. And it's like every day I'm just like, Karen, come on, please. Karen, can we just have a conversation? Like I bought this light for you, Karen. Like I'm ordering you, right, Karen? And then I had Janet. I know. You already this person is herb whatever. But everything blends into the farming, right? The intimate connection around life giving. While one of my plants is actually going through a transformation. There's a transformation happening regardless if that means that I physically don't get to have the energy of them materialize for me. In my space where they were, there will be a presence of them forever. And I think that is the power of the Phoenix rising. The power of the Phoenix rising says that your destination is not where your physical body is. Your destination is where your energetical force can land. Like it can be, it can grow, it can work, it can have a conversation with the living, have a conversation with the future, also have a conversation with the past. And I think that is so powerful when we get a chance to like really sit with that. Then this becomes a life-giving conversation for me.
Life-giving. I definitely would love to share 2 lessons from the farm, but I don't know, this is bleak, but I also find it to be hilarious. Can I just share a current event?
Yeah,
please.
It's about Black life being commodified, but I think it's hilarious. This is me personally. I read about this like yesterday in The Guardian. Okay, so Sophie the cat lady on Twitter posted a thread about a Charleston, it's a nonprofit jewelry company that's based in Charleston. And there was like a riot. There was a riot or an uprising that happened in Charleston. And these jewelry makers used broken glass from the riot to make these pieces of jewelry. And they started this collection called Wear Their Names.
Ooh.
Wear Their Names, inspired by Say Their Names. And so they had like a $240 necklace called the Brianna. They had like some pairs of earrings called the Trayvon. And I was like, no. What? Like how? Because you went to and then you took the glass and then you made it and then you named it and then you gave it prices. And this is helping this. So I just want to share that. All I got was this stupid necklace. Like
a Black person died and all I got was a stupid necklace.
And you can see that the trying, this is from the scene.
That's giving them a little bit of credit.
How does that protect anything? Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Wear their
How does it
name.
protect anything? How does it protect anything, anybody?
Wear their
That's where it gets
name.
tested.
Well, no, but it's how deep, like, it's how deep capitalism is tied to systemic and institutional oppression, right? Like, it's actually the same word. Like,
Right.
we came over here on a boat not because people hated Black folks, it's because they wanted they are intertwined. And so when it shows up as wear their names, it makes sense because that is what America is. That is the foundation.
That's the machine.
And they think because we as a country have never had a conversation about truth reconciliation and never had a conversation about systemic healing, never, ever, ever reckoned with that original sin, then everything that grows, back to the metaphor, everything that grows has to be strange fruit, right? Has to be strange fruit. And
they got shut down though.
Good.
Because of I think of the performative activism of social media outrage. I actually think that was in the way of it, you know, this whole thing eating itself. I think that did help in a sense. It brought, you know, Sophie the Cat Lady's post brought attention to this, and now we can kind of laugh at, you know, canceling this jewelry line.
Let me say this because it's deeper. My therapist always brings up, this Tony K. Bambara quote that really sits in the crux of what we're talking about. And when you say stories like that, Chelsea, I think about actually this American experiment and what we're willing to live for, but what we're willing to die for, right? Where it's reverse. And it says, "Are you sure, sweetheart, that you want to be well? Just so you're sure, sweetheart, and ready to be healed, because wholeness is no trifling matter. A lot of weight when you're well." And I think a part of that is, are we sure we want to be well? When we talk about the poison we consume for our pleasure, are we sure we want to be well?
Yeah.
Easier to get a fast food than sit around a table and have conversation. Are we sure we want to be well? When it's easier to buy the like $300 sneakers so that we can like pop our collars and clout chase and be performative, do we want to be well? Or do we want to toe the line and just make enough noise that our noise matters and not our lives? Because lives have a force to it. They're about affirming breath and not affirming, you know. So I just wonder, sweetheart, it's no trifling matter. You know?
A shout out to the therapists.
Yeah, right.
Helping us through this moment.
Thing. Therapy is so powerful.
Yeah, thank you. Therapy. All of our personal ones who are watching, hopefully right now, just looking you in the eye saying thanks.
It's very important. It is very important, especially during, I mean, I think it's important before COVID, but especially during COVID, I just think that it is a necessary tool.
Ooh, I have a thought. Jonathan, remember a new friend and brother in heart and soul is a man named John Wright, who spoke about needing a mental break from his very kind of important job around supporting culture and arts. And you know, the murder of George Floyd was a reckoning for him. And he really centered a conversation at Culture at 3 around Black mental wellness. And so I wonder if on our Facebook, Chelsea, and I know that we wanted to in October do a whole series about Black mental wellness. I wonder if we should share some of those resources. That's what I'm saying, Jonathan. Some of those Black owned resources around mental wellness. Maybe we want to share a list of some of those, and most of the resources are free.
Yeah,
that
I'm
might
claiming that.
come out of this download.
I think that's essential. I mean, I think if we are going to get well, wellness comes from knowing also that you need support.
Mm-hmm.
Wellness comes from not understanding that support doesn't mean that you're weak. That support means that you're actually you're actually in the midst of your strength.
Mm-hmm.
That you need someone, like, just as much as you need to go to the gym, and the machine, like the therapist can be considered like the weight that you need to wear to tear the muscle just the right amount so you can build it again. And you have to do that inside of the mental space of how you perceive life, but also the spiritual space of how you attract life. And I think we don't always address the rigor that it takes and necessary that is needed in order for those two things to be in alignment. So yeah, I uplift that and I say, yeah, let's definitely share that resource, because if anyone's out there who is in need, especially with the kind of bombardment that's happening, and you need someone, or you need a process to process the actual life that you live. I think it's very, very important.
MBT family who's watching on Facebook Live, if you have questions around mental wellness that we could answer in a future download, just like write them in the comments and we will answer them, or we will hire a professional to answer them. If you want our opinions.
I would say one of the things that we're saying about wellness is that it's an inside-out job.
Yes.
And then why, full circle moment as we approach the hour, is that the thing about performative activism is it's an outside-in reaction to something that's happening. So how can there be real wellness or healing or shift or change besides the shifting of a noise, agents, access to noise, right? If it is not coming from the inside out. And that is what wellness really is a journey from the inside out.
Quote of this: the journey to wellness is from the inside out. Tomorrow's morning affirmation. Look out for it.
I mean, what I do want to uplift as we veer to the closeout of this. I know, Nia, there might have been another question that you might want to make sure that we reached out to. Great. I just want to give people an understanding of what this download is going to be moving forward. I think we gave a little bit of context around it, but I just want people to know that this will be a monthly series every second Thursday of the month. You will see these four bright faces ready to serve up some download tea. What will happen is that one of us will actually curate that conversation. Nia was the brave soul. The first one. You did a fantastic job.
I wouldn't say curate.
And we will rotate. Look, the future's here.
Hi, future.
We will rotate who will curate the next one, so that you'll hear from all four of us, and we'll center in our ideas and what we want to talk about. I love Thelonious.
I nominate Thelonious to moderate the next conversation. Our views just jumped as soon as a child walked in. I will just say we went from 35 to 45.
We love Thelonious.
That's our winning ticket.
So you should just know that we are going to rotate curation. All of us are going to be involved in that kind of the hot seat of really helping to drive this conversation. We will be doing this every second Thursday. Invite people, let people know. And should I do the Trinity Challenge now? Are we have more that we need to do?
Oh, you mean
give a little context around the download. It was named the download because oftentimes these kinds of conversations, these present pulse issues, really lend themselves to having a communal response. And through communal response, we get messages from, that are not from the book that we're reading or the news that we saw, but we get downloads, which is an ancestral connection to our wisdom. Some people call it our gut. One of the things that it's also rooted in, the founder of National Black Theater, Dr. Barbara Ann Teer, often shaped the pedagogy of National Black Theater based on the download she was receiving. She was very clear that she was connected 7 generations back, and her mission here on this earth plane was to create a pathway for 7 generations forward. And we're 52 years in. And so what I will say is that the download comes from a very rooted space that connects us to our ancestral wisdom. So we are also very grateful that you would take the time to go on that journey with us. Jonathan?
So there's just a Trinity challenge that we love to give. We see everyone, we literally have welcomed you into our homes. Welcome to MBT at Home, the download. And as being part of our family members, as we see you as such, we just have three things we would love for you to do. If you enjoyed this conversation, if there are moments that you were really inspired by, share. Share with people on your Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Let people know that a conversation like this will be happening every second Thursday of the month. Yes, Nia was saying, welcome people to the cookout, because the family members should know what they're doing. Secondly is signing up on our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. The next one, this allows for you to be able to know what we're doing, know about the morning affirmations. Nia does a stunning job of making sure that there is a healing salve provided for you at 6 a.m., sometimes 7, every morning, for you to be able to look at the top of the day, to really affirm who you are and affirm where your trajectory can go. And then sign up on our mailing list on our website so you get to know our e-blast. We have a lot of programming happening. Although COVID has stopped us from doing live in-person programming, National Black Theater is doing a lot of digital programming. One of them is being the download. The other one is a powerful series called Unbought and Unbossed, Reclaiming Our Vote. And lastly is a show called Retreat that we're turning into a radio play. And that's just our fall programming. So there's a powerful opportunity to engage with MBT from a creative standpoint, from a I need to be empowered standpoint, and just from a communal base of let's have community standpoint. So we hope that you'll join us. And then lastly is making a contribution. National Black Theater, a theater founded by a Black woman, Dr. Barbara Antier, still helmed by a Black woman, by Sade Lithcott, where we are only able to kind of do the kind of risk-taking, innovative, pivoting, and forward-visioning work that you see day in and day out, because we have family members willing to make sure the soil that we plant with the seeds that we have, the roots are deep, are rich, and are able to sprout brand new branches, trees, foliage, and fruit for us to bear and be fed by. So if you enjoy the work that we do and you want to see and be a part of a team that is about the healing algorithm of who we are, please give $1, $2, $87 million. They all, come on, you out there, whoop, whoop. We would deeply appreciate it. And then, are we doing Unifying Breath, or are we just gonna go? Are we just taking this thing out? I'm listening. I'm waiting on y'all team.
Nia, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Can't hear you.
You said it. It's kind of a tease to not do the Unifying Breath.
Truly.
No, it's our first time doing it, so I was just trying to get all of the ducks in a row.
Well,
okay.
We'll get ready.
A couple of things. Can we do a couple of things?
Please.
I think we have to end with a unifying breath, but I also want to open it up to Chelsea and
please.
To have last kind of nuggets that our family that's watching can kind of go away with based on this conversation. And then Jonathan, if you would do the privilege of closing us out with a unifying breath, that would be amazing.
I have a farming nugget, something that occurred to me yesterday. 3 remedies that I think generate life: water, sunlight, and time. So give anything those 3 things and see what happens.
I think that's a beautiful way to close it out. I was looking for, honestly, I feel, I don't know what I feel, but I needed some ingredients for my garden. So thank you for that, Chelsea. Thank you, everyone who's involved in this, you 3 specifically, for bringing a life-affirming conversation to what feels very dark outside. So
So we're going to take a unifying breath. So wherever you are, however you can, if you're sitting down, if you're standing, or if you're just in a levitated space, if you could just ground yourself, we're going to take a unifying breath, something that we do at MBT. So planting yourself, if you can, 2 feet on the ground, connecting yourself to Mother Earth, and however you can, just connecting yourself to the vibration of Mother Earth. I love to say that, like, to imagine yourself connecting to the core of this planet and allowing that core, the warmth of that core, to bubble up and come through the sole of your feet, and allowing for the crown, the royal, the abundant you to travel through the crown of your head and land into the center of your system. We're just going to take a breath together from wherever you are, however you are, so that we all, everyone who's listening at this moment in juncture, you are able to know that you are breathing in a possibility with others who care, others who listen, others who are with you. And I'll give you a little bit around the technology that I know around breath so that we're all on the same page. Breath is a very important thing. Breath is the thing that allowed for this instrument, this vessel, this gift, this machine to operate. Breath is the thing that woke you up this morning. So with that, we're going to take a unifying breath, knowing that the space and time in which we've been able to occupy in this moment will never happen again. This sacred algorithm of imagining, ideating, and sharing and loving, and really coming to a reckoning around some real needed things of what seeds we plant, what sunlight we give it, what water we put on top of it, and what soil that we're actually nurturing may come to be. So with that, we're going to breathe in. And when we breathe in, as we breathe in, what do we want to bear onto this planet? And what do we want to give life to this planet? What joy do we want to root inside of ourselves? And then when we exhale, we actually exhale as a gift. So it wraps around everyone in our vicinity, everyone that we are able to be in hindsight and see, so that we're wrapped around as lighter, brighter, abundant human beings, able to do the work we were called on this planet to do, whatever it may be. On the count of 3, inhale in, exhale out, and thank you so much for joining us for the first download. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, inhale, then exhale. Ashe.
Ashe.
Bam.
Thank you.
Love y'all.